Today we're going to talk about matrix multiplication. Something to note when you multiply matrices. You can only multiply them if and only if the inner dimensions are the same. So let's look at an example of that. Looking at this example, the first thing I'm going to do is write the dimensions of each of these matrices to see the inner and outer dimensions. So the first one is a 2 by 3 matrix, and the second one is a 3 by 1 matrix. So what you're looking at is the inner dimensions. Since both inner dimensions, when you write them next to each other like this, then they're the same. So that means that you can multiply them. So again, they're inner because of the order in which we say a 2 by 3 times a 3 by 1. So if you need to, you can always rewrite it like this as a multiplication problem according to their dimensions, and then note that they're in the middle. So when you multiply, you actually already know the dimension of your product. The dimension of your product is the two outside dimensions put together. So your product is going to be a 2 by 1 matrix. So you'll have a number here and a number here, which is a 2 by 1 matrix. Okay, so let's look at this second example. If I wrote out my dimensions, I would have a 2 by 2 times a 1 by 3. So you need to check the middle too, and since they are not equal, this is not possible. So you are not able to multiply the two given matrices. So again, if the inner two dimensions are the same, then you can multiply them. But then after you multiply them, the outer two dimensions put together form the dimensions of your product. Now when we multiply, we're going to use the calculator, and I'm going to walk you through steps on what buttons to press on your calculator with some screenshots of my calculator and me doing it along with you. So pause the video if you need to go back and follow the directions again with the calculator, but we're only going to multiply using the calculator. Okay, looking at the first matrix, the dimension is a 1 by 3, and the second dimension is a 3 by 1. So I notice that my middle two are the same, so I can multiply them, and my final matrix is going to be a 1 by 1, which means it's just going to be one number. Okay, so let's walk through the steps on the calculator of how to do this. Okay, so on your calculator, you want to first press second. So you're going to press second, and then I want you to press the button right here, the one that says x to the negative 1. If you look right above that, it says matrix. That's what we want to choose. That's going to be our go-to for this whole unit. So second matrix, and after you do that, you're going to find a menu that looks like this. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, the names just represent the names of each matrix, and it's always going to start on the alphabet A and B. And I really recommend just sticking with A and B this whole unit so you don't get confused with what else is what. But as soon as we edit one of these, then we're going to use the name column in a little bit when we actually do the actual multiplication part. So what I want you to then do is arrow over to edit, and then I want you to hit enter. And when you do that, on that screen, up top, it wants you to type in the dimension. So our dimension is a 1 by 3, so I want you to type in a 1 at first, and then a 3, because we have a 1 by 3. That's our first matrix. And then all you need to do right here is enter in your 1, 3, and 5. And you can just do that by hitting 1, enter, 3, enter, 5, enter, or 1 arrow to the right, 3 arrow to the right, or 5 arrow to the right. So this is what your screen should now look like after you have that. So after you do that, we're going to now do matrix B because we need our next one, our 3x1 matrix, to be called B. So we're going to go into that same second -1 button like over here. And then you're going to type in 3x1. And after you do that, the same thing. You're going to plug in your values 10, 7, and -2. So 10, 7, and -2 is what your matrix B should be. Okay, so now we're going to use that name column, like over here, to choose A and B and then multiply them. So what I want you to do right now is hit second mode, which is the quit button. Okay, second mode. So you should have a blank screen like you see just right here. Blank screen, nothing on it. And if there's something on it, clear it out. And then what you're going to do is you're going to hit that second matrix button again. And then instead of going over to the edit button, since we already did that, we're going to use the name column right there. So you should have a screen that looks like this. So we have a 1x3 matrix, which is our first one, our matrix named A, and then a 3x1 matrix named B. So now what we do is hit enter. So you choose the first one, and then on your screen you're going to have that little A like this. Okay, then I want you to go back, hit second matrix, and the second time around I want you to choose B. So arrow down and then hit enter, and then on your screen you'll have your B. And I'll show you what it looks like on the calculator. So know that when we have two things being right next to each other, that means that they're being multiplied. So don't worry about putting the multiplication symbol in. You can if you want, just to make yourself feel better, but this is perfectly fine too. This means multiply. If we subtract, obviously we want to put a minus sign, but you know that 2x is 2 times x, so we don't, that multiplication symbol is understood. So then you hit enter, and you should find that your matrix A and B equals 21. So when you multiply that 1 times 3 matrix by that 3 times 1 matrix, you get a 1x1 matrix, which has a value of 21. So that's your final answer. Now, I did put the multiplication here, sign there, just to show you that it works too. It doesn't matter. But what I also want you to note is the calculator is going to give you the matrix dimension that it should. So if you try to multiply a matrix that doesn't have the two inner dimensions equal, it won't let you. It'll say error, and then I forget what the error is, but it probably says something about dimension mismatch. So if I was going to get a 2x2 matrix right here, after I hit enter, it's going to give me a 2x2. So don't worry about having to figure out anything like that. Okay, so what I want you to do is work through that worksheet, that note worksheet, just the front page. We'll do the back together tomorrow or the next time we meet. And I want you to follow these directions. This video is mainly to show you the calculator directions so that you can give this a try. So I'll be looking for that worksheet completed next time I see you. What I would do, like I said, only deal with matrix A and B. Don't take the next one, say it's a 3x3 matrix, and call it C. When you have this menu and you're looking at A and B, you don't know what it is you have to remember. So I strongly recommend that you just start over, go back to A. It's okay. It'll say 3x1 or 1x3 because that's what we just called it. But once you change the dimensions and make them 3 times 3 or 3x3, then all the other values will change and you just override it. So what I'm saying is this matrix we used is A, this one we used is B, but for the next problem, I want you to just go into the matrix tab in your calculator and override A with the first matrix you're working with and B with the second, so that whenever you multiply, you always have A times B.